Hey everyone, this is the civil rights test. Number 1. What are civil rights? A, rights that only some citizens get. B, rights that all citizens get. C, rights that are civil. D, rights controlled by the president. Number 2. How did TV, newspapers, and the media play a role in the civil rights movement? A, they showed how great Jim Crow laws were. B, they showed how unfair Jim Crow laws were and helped convince people to join the civil rights movement. C, they made a lot of money following Martin Luther King Jr. Or D, the civil rights movement was not covered by the news media. Okay, the number 3 is based on the information in the box. Leader of the civil rights movement, was arrested during the Montgomery bus boycott, believed in passive resistance, gave a speech during the March on Washington. Number 3, who is best associated with the information above? A, Lyndon B. Johnson, B, Thurgood Marshall, C, Rosa Parks, or D, Martin Luther King Jr. Number 4, a major goal of the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s was to A, end racial segregation, B, reduce prejudice against immigrants, C, reform prison conditions, or D, improve living conditions for Native American Indians. Okay, number 5 is based on this newspaper cover and your knowledge of social studies. Number 5, what effect did the murder of Emmett Till have on the civil rights movement? A, it motivated people such as Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King to make changes. B, people were afraid to speak out after the men were acquitted. C, it did not have an effect at all. Or D, African Americans were no longer allowed to attend trials. Okay. Number 6 is based on the information in this box and your knowledge of social studies. Reporter Mike Wallace. All right, sir. A federal district court has already ruled that the Little Rock, Arkansas Central High School should be integrated, and the reasons for preventing integration now are anemic, which means weak. In view of your promise to the President, Dwight D. Eisenhower, will you respect this decision and give your okay to integration beginning tomorrow morning? Governor Orville Faubus. I'm previously given my okay to integration. The Guard was not called out to prevent integration, but to keep the peace and order of the community. And of course, I disagree with your preliminary statement that we are in defiance of a federal court order, based upon the premise that the peace and good order of the community is paramount to all other issues. Number 6. The issue discussed in this interview grew out of an effort to enforce the Supreme Court decision in A, Dred Scott versus Sanford, 1857, B, Korematsu versus the United States of 1944, C, Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896, or D, Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, 1954. Number 7. During the Montgomery bus boycott, African American citizens A, deprived the city bus system of the majority of its regular passengers, B, stopped white citizens from using the city bus system, C, did not develop a carpool system, or D, formed the Committee on Civil Rights to help cities stage similar boycotts. Number 8. An African American woman who was asked to give up her seat on the bus to a white man in Montgomery, Alabama was A, Harriet Beecher Stowe, B, Michelle Obama, C, Coretta King, or D, Rosa Parks. Okay. The next one, you're going to base the answer on your knowledge of social studies and the picture. So number 9, what does the picture of the March on Washington above represent? A, demand for improved social and economic opportunities for African Americans. B, a silent protest on the nation's capital. C, a boycott of all segregated public facilities. Or D, a fight for school and bus segregation. Number 10. Base your answer to question number 10 on your knowledge of social studies in the passage below. And when this happens, and when we allow freedom to ring, and when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, and from every state and every city, yes, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, yes, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Number 10. The words free at last in this passage are referring to freedom from A. Hunger, B. Censorship, C. Racism, or D. Taxation. Number 11 is based on this excerpt from the speech from Martin Luther King Jr., I Have a Dream. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. Number 11. What was the main idea of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech? A. King gave his vision for America's future and described blacks and whites living and working in harmony. B. King encouraged African Americans to rise up against the government until segregation was made illegal in all areas. C. King announced that Congress had just passed the Civil Rights Act. Or D. King encouraged African Americans in the South to use force to vote in elections if needed. Number 12 is based on this excerpt from Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. No voting qualifications or prerequisite to voting or standard, practice, or procedure shall be imposed or applied by any state or political subdivision to deny or abridge the right of any citizen of the United States to vote on account of race or color. Number 12. Specific goal stated in this section of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was to A. Expand the use of property qualifications. B. Establish voter qualifications such as literacy tests. C. Stop fraudulent voting in large cities. Or D. Remove barriers to voting based on racial background. Number 13. The legislation excerpted above led to a turning point in history because A. It allowed women to vote in presidential elections. B. It granted the right to vote to Americans under the age of 18. C. It ended the use of grandfather clauses, literacy tests, poll taxes, or other tactics to prevent African Americans from voting. D. It granted the right to vote to immigrants who were not American citizens. Number 14. Which method did Martin Luther King Jr. use to try to end racial segregation? A. Violent civil unrest. B. Government-funded protests. C. National revolution. Or D. Civil disobedience. Number 15. Which of the following is not an example of passive resistance? A. Protesters refuse to buy goods from a specific store. B. Protesters organize a march to protest a specific store. C. Protesters loot a specific store. Or D. Protesters sit in front of a specific store and refuse to move until the store owner agrees to sell goods to all people. So just so you know, the word loot means almost like to steal. It's like kind of like running into stores, breaking windows, and just taking things, okay? So which of the following is not an example of passive, non-aggressive resistance? Okay, for number 16, I'm going to read this kind of like a poem called Merry-Go-Round. Where's the Jim Crow section on this merry-go-round, mister? 'Cause I want to ride. Down south where I come from, white and colored can't sit by side. Down south on the train, there's a Jim Crow car. On the bus, we're put in the back. But there ain't no back to a merry-go-round. Where's the horse for a kid that's black? Langston Hughes, 1942. Number 16. Which social problem is the main concern of this poem? A. Poor housing. B. White violence. C. Unemployment. Or D. Racial segregation. Okay, please your answer to number 17 on the picture below and your knowledge of social studies. Number 17. The main purpose of the people sitting at the lunch counter in this photograph was to A. Desegregate schools, B. Desegregate public facilities, C. Gain voting rights, D. Promote affirmative action. And lastly, number 18. Which of the following leaders was not assassinated in the 1960s? A. Robert F. Kennedy, B. John F. Kennedy, C. Martin Luther King Jr., or D. Cesar Chavez. Okay, guys, if you have any questions, please send me an email or you can text me through the Remind app. I will definitely answer your questions. I'm around. Good luck, and when you are finished with your test and happy with your choices, please submit.